Good morning. What we have in mind is breakfast in bed for 400,000.
Hi everyone, welcome to another video. This is going to be a much belated instalment of recent spins, which I haven't done, I don't think, since back in maybe May, June, something like that. So I will whiz through these. Nothing particularly astounding, certainly nothing unusual, but I treat this series like a diary, really. This first one, this is Roger Taylor and his album Fun in Space. And the reason that I pulled this one off the shelf, well, for a start, I hadn't listened to it in years, absolutely years. But also, Roger is on tour at the moment, and I was absolutely gutted that I missed my chance to go and see him. I found out about the tour about a week after the Manchester date. He did a couple of dates, you know, within spitting distance of me, and the nearest one I could have got to after that was Nottingham Sound City, which is too far, really. So I was gutted. I've never seen any of the members of Queen live, and it would have been great to see Roger. I've been watching the clips that are on YouTube, and you know, the show looks really good. It's him on lead vocals, he's doing his Queen, all the Queen songs, and just really good band, you know. What a shame. Maybe he'll come round again. Anyway, this was his first solo album. I think it came out in, I don't know, maybe 1980, something like that. It was right about the time that they were doing perhaps the Game album. The sound of the record is not dissimilar. Roger was always the member of Queen who was most into, you know, the new wave kind of sound. This record has definitely got a bit of a new wave flavour to it. There he is there. And just good fun, you know, nothing too serious. 81 actually. Nothing too groundbreaking, earth-shattering, but just a fun, new wavy album. He plays most of the tracks on it. Sorry, he plays most of the instruments on it: guitars, bass, drums. So it's got a bit of a DIY kind of sound, and yeah, it was just, you know, just great fun hearing that again. I love the cover as well, marvellous. So yeah, Fun in Space by Roger Taylor from 1981. Yeah, complete contrast from a bit later in the decade. This one's for John Bellamy, because I know John is a big fan of this band. Gave this one a bit of an outing. Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, Rattlesnakes. This was 84. I sort of missed out on Lloyd Cole completely back in the 80s. He totally passed me by. The first time I heard him was in 1992, and that was his album Mainstream, which is the third and final album by the Commotions, which I really liked. And when I got back into collecting vinyl seriously about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided to try and track down the other two albums by the Commotions. So I've got the set now, and yeah, it's kind of, you know, it's literary, melancholy, wistful sounding British pop music from the early to mid 80s. Good band, you know, they were quite rootsy in their way. They had an ability to weave guitars together in a way which was, I guess, you know, fairly classicist in a way. And Lloyd Cole's lyrics are always interesting to listen to. There's a sort of stream of consciousness quality, almost like you're reading his diary, really. I think most of the songs are quite personal to him. You know, he tells stories about his love life. Most of the songs seem to be about his love life. And, you know, but they're couched in these very plaintive but sophisticated melodies. Actually, there's a kind of deceptive simplicity, I think, about his writing. There's quite a lot going on in these songs, and you know, they do bear repeated listening. So this is I think this is the best of the three. You know, they didn't fall into that trap of just hanging around too long and making endless albums, I guess. So yeah, very nice. Lloyd Cole and the Commotions. Dotting all around now in terms of time. I should have got these into some sort of chronological order. This next one, I hadn't listened to this for years, and it was really nostalgic listening to this, almost painfully nostalgic. This is The Rise and Fall by Madness, which I think came out in, actually it might be the same year as that last one. I think it was 82 actually, on Stiff. I got this record for Christmas in, I think it would have been 1983, and what it really strongly reminds me of is starting secondary school. And I seem to remember I got a new record player that year as well, so that was a great Christmas morning. But This record, it's very melancholy. It's got a real bleakness to it, a very British bleakness. Bit sort of kinksy in places. I don't know how successful it was, but I would imagine that some fans coming to it expecting to hear more songs like Baggy Trousers. I mean, it does have Our House on it, the hit Our House. But apart from that, most of the songs are quite downbeat. You've got Rise and Fall, which is quite a mournful song in a way. Blue Skin Beast, which I think was an attack on Thatcherism. Primrose Hill, I think, is probably the strongest tune on the album apart from Our House. It's got a lovely, tuneful, wistful quality to it. But, you know, Sunday Morning is good. Side 2, it definitely goes into more of a melancholy strain. Songs like Tiptoes, That Face. It's not a bouncy, happy album at all. You know, Madness had their more kind of rainy day side, and perhaps that was the idea of the cover, you know. But something very of its time about this record, that kind of early 80s, just really takes me back, you know, the brass sounds and some of the production, although it's fairly timeless.
A man opened his window and stared up Primrose Hill. Out there enjoying themselves, I've seen them from this cell. Green splashed with white and red going brown. Children baiting animals, running up and down.
Unlike this next record, now this one again I hadn't listened to for years, so but it's been in the back of my mind to pull it off the shelf, and so I did. Robert Plant and Manic Nirvana. Now this came out in 1990, and it was just after I'd gone to uni. Went to uni in '89. This album came out in 1990, so it sort of takes me back to my student days. This one. This was number. Let's have a look. See there, number 808. No idea if it's worth anything. And we've got some good hairstyles on this record. There's Robert all slicked back, and there's his band. This was the band, I think, that he'd used on Now and Zen. He got a new band together. Now and Zen had been a bit of an 80s record. It was Robert trying to do Ultravox, I guess. This record saw him trying to go back to a more Zeppelin-y sound, but doing it in a kind of early 90s style. So the production, it's a bit sort of Jesus Jones, you know, a bit clattery. The guitars have got a bit of a early 90s sound, but there's some good stuff on it. It's not a fantastic album, but it's got a couple of great tracks. The song Tie-Dye on the Highway, which is at the start of side 2, starts off with this sample from Woodstock, and it just goes into this very kind of, just very, very 1990s, churning guitars, big booming stadium drums, but it's got a real kind of trippy quality to the chorus. I used to have it on a mixtape in my car when I was a student. It was a mixtape that I had, and I played it to death. Tie-Dye on the Highway, it was such a big tune for me. Nice to go back to this record. Like I said, it's not a wonderful album, but it's you know, it's good fun. This next one, probably inspired by watching John Baggy Hi-Fi. I think he was doing a video on some kind of garage rock thing. Might have been British garage rock. I can't quite remember. Anyway, it reminded me that I had this record. This is the Chocolate Watch Band, and this is basically a compilation on Big Beat. It came out in 1984, and I picked this up maybe 3 or 4 years ago. The Chocolate Watch Band, I discovered them via an interview with Bobby Gillespie, I think, and Jason Pierce in perhaps a copy of The Enemy. It would have been in the mid-90s, just, you know, talking about obscure garage stuff. I think it was before I'd heard the Nuggets box set, or the Nuggets album even. The track by the Chocolate Watch Band on Nuggets is really good. I can't remember which one it is now. and I just really like that kind of suburban, tough kind of sound, very Stonesy. Much more raw than the Stones though, I guess. Interesting history, this bunch. You know, they were from the West Coast, I think they were from San Francisco, weren't they? But it's a fairly convoluted history. They ended up not playing on some of their records. It was one of those things where, you know, the name got taken over by the men in suits, so it wasn't always possible to tell if you were actually listening to the Chocolate Watch Band or just some bunch of session guys. But I think I'm right in thinking that this record collects together all the tracks which they actually did play on. There's some real fantastic stuff on here. I'm Not Like Everybody Else is a kind of standout track. Don't Need Your Lovin', I Ain't No Miracle Worker, good cover version of that, and their classic Are You Gonna Be There at the Lovin'. Just great kind of febrile, angry sounding, rhythm and blues tinged 60s garage punk music from the 60s. 60s garage punk music from the 60s. Chocolate Watch Band, and like I said, that's on Big Beat, 1984. Okay, next one, another record that has been languishing in my collection for a long time. This was a charity shop find from a few years ago. I think I picked it up for about £2 or something. This is OMD, and Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, of course. Organisation, which was their second album, first top 10 album that they've had. OMD were not a group that I was into back in the 80s. They would have completely passed me by. But I've discovered them in recent years. I'm not particularly familiar with all their music, but I've got most of their records on vinyl, and I always enjoy them when I listen to them. It's very well crafted electronic music. Always strikes me that they have got a grasp of classic songcraft in a way, combination of synths and real instruments, but they do have a winning way with the tune. On side 2 of this record, The More I See You, great track.
Can you imagine how much I love you? The more I see you, as years go by, I know you.
And Motion and Heart on side 1 is really good. So yeah, 1980 this came out. They were really around at the start of it all, really, weren't they? I mean, you know, them and Ultravox, I guess, and Human League. Such an exciting time for British pop music in a way. But they were certainly shouldering out the old guard, making records like this. I can imagine it getting up people's noses at the time. It's a good album, and yeah, nice windswept location there. Wonder where that is. Goodness me, it looks very volcanic. Fantastic shot. Right, okay, so the next one. Now, this was a gift years ago, and it was a gift from a guy called Martin Duke, who used to have a VC channel called Spin It Tweaks. He was a lovely guy, one of the first friends I made on the VC, and he made really nice videos, but I think he just lost interest, took his channel down. He has been back a couple of times, but he doesn't seem to be somebody who's particularly interested anymore in the whole business of this, you know, doing this. But he sent me this record, Richard Thompson, Hand of Kindness, produced by Joe Boyd, of Nick Drake fame, of course, and early Pink Floyd, 1985. And I showed this on Facebook. I think it was Headley who told me it was Richard Thompson's, only his second album in 11 years or something, because he made an album and then he did the whole Fairport Convention thing, and I assume that went on for years, and then he made another album, so I think that's right anyway, his second solo album. Got Dave Mattox on drums, and Dave Pegg on bass, and all the old stalwarts there, and just what a great album it is, really great. I was dancing around the room to this, very upbeat, very rootsy, obviously, you know, Richard Thompson. Tear-Stained Letter, Both Ends Burning, The Wrong Heartbeat, just really great kind of upbeat, tuneful songs, just great fun, really, really nice. And like I said, you know, it was a gift from Martin, who we don't see anymore really, so a bit of twinge of nostalgia there. So yeah, Richard Thompson, Hand of Kindness. Now this one, I've made a whole video about this album, but I hadn't listened to it in many, many years, really. It needed a clean, I think, that was the thing. It had a big, horrible blotch on it, and I wasn't looking forward to trying to scrape that off, but I did put it through the cleaner, and it cleaned up good. And this is Jellyfish and Belly Button. This doesn't need too much introduction. Most people seem to know about Jellyfish. I mean, they sold no records at all. They came out at the wrong time, with the wrong image, really. The music it kind of predated a lot of the Britpop stuff. You know, some of the tracks on this do sound a little bit like the stuff that was around a bit later in the 90s, you know. Stuff like She's Electric by Oasis, got that kind of 67 Beatlesy sound. But they were much more diverse than Oasis, instrumentally. You know, they used harpsichords and, you know, just classic strings and psychedelic effects. But their songwriting was so strong. The vocals are fantastic, the drumming is brilliant. And this album has just got so many good songs on it. The King is Half Undressed on side 1. Sounds like a sort of mixture of Queen, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Cheap Trick. Brilliant. Side 2, you've got possibly the standout track, which is Baby's Coming Back, which has got the most infectious tune imaginable, but this quite kind of dark lyric, really. They were a really interesting band. Like I said, they had the wrong image. Their second album, Spilt Milk, which I know Chris has shown recently, that's Dixieland Farm Chris, just totally broke the bank. He was saying, you know, it cost them like $250,000 to make or something, and it, you know, totally flopped. And that was the end of Jellyfish. But I got this album in '91, having read a review about it in Q magazine, and I think the review just said if you like, you know, Queen, Supertramp, and Wings, you'll love this album. So, being a fan of those artists, I took myself down to would have been Virgin Records here in Lancaster and bought a copy, and it really kept me company. The winter of 1990, I think it was the winter of 1990, when I was a student. Things were not going well for me at the time. I was in a very bad relationship, and I'd become a bit isolated from my friends, you know. And this is one of the records which I used to listen to in my hovel of a bedroom, and it, you know, used to really brighten up my life. And again, a slightly painfully nostalgic one. This really, that thing where it takes you back in sort of a pleasant way, revisiting certain emotional territory, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, wonderful album. Belly Button, Jellyfish. Right, there we go, 20 minutes. That's easily long enough. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon. Bye.